Hey everybody, how we doing out there? Doc and Mav here with Ready Set Live. This is what is today? Wednesday, April 10th. How's everybody doing out there? If you are live, give us a shout out. Let us know that this is working, and make sure that we are broadcasting out into the ether. If you're watching this through a replay, hello as well too, and pretend like we're live with you guys. So, um, wow, what a positive week in cryptocurrency, eh?
Yeah, it's we are we're testing these new limits, and it's good to see. I've been talking to a lot of people in person about your recent activity, and everyone seems to be cautiously optimistic, is how I'll put it. So it's yeah, I think I don't know. It kind of reminds me of 2017 in the early phases, back before the hype cycle kind of got out of control. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
You know, it's amazing to me that as long as I've been messing around with markets, they will always move in a manner so as to confuse the greatest number of people that are out there.
Hmm.
I always felt that probably the best move that we'd see that would create the longest lasting bottom would be a quick dive down and, a bounce off of 3,000 just when everybody had given up hope. And we didn't see that. And at this point, I would have to say that we're unlikely to see 3,000 again. But, I could be surprised here. But right now, I'm seeing the dog pile. I'm seeing people just like, oh shit, here it goes. Let's get on board before it gets away from us.
Yeah, a lot of the conversations I've also had revolve around, what happens next. If we're watching the market, slowly recover here and start to do something interesting, that predicates what? What are we going to do you know, if it goes back to 10,000 or 20,000? How will we respond? So it's nice to see us having those conversations again. Maybe a bit unrealistic in the short term to hope for 20,000 or anything like that. But it's good to have people thinking rationally about, okay, yeah, if we're watching the space recover, if we're watching things grow, we need to be more responsible this time. Is basically the rhetoric I'm hearing. So yeah, it's definitely good to hear.
You know, and I know that that won't happen, though. There is no
Eh,
such thing as responsible and a financial market in the same sentence. Financial markets are human beings are irrational, and financial markets are irrational as well too, and they will
mm,
always operate in that manner. So you'll see people. I mean, you're seeing it right now. You're seeing. We saw another squeeze today, which is nice. It's got some legs to it. It's got volume. This is everything that I was looking for. So
yeah.
there's some people that are disappointed with me out there, like, hey, you were predicting that the price, and I'm like, no, I was not predicting. I wanted to see the price go down because that to me would throw the greatest number of people off the bus, which is kind of always your goal, is to get the herd in the wrong direction, and then you can step in and take the opposite way. But
Mhm.
every single bear is going to be different, and it's this one is no different so far, at least the recovery from it. So we'll see whether or not this lasts. Now, I guess at this point, I'd love to see some type of, and here I go again. I'm setting myself up for failure, I know, by saying this, but I would love to see some type of high or low setup. I would love to see all of a sudden the price dive down. I mean, go back to 2015 again when this thing went straight up, right? It went straight up and it recovered, and then boom, it retraced all the way down to the breakout level. And it just shook everybody off at that point, and then it said, thank you very much, I'm out of here. So I mean, those types of moves, I'm just so used to that type of move. And if the opposite of that would be this thing just keeps on going and going and going. 6,400 is within scope of this move. It's certainly possible to hit I mean, we're most of the way there already.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting is sort of the implications of, watching the market of different cryptocurrencies and what they're doing. So once again, we are in a circumstance where should we watch Bitcoin or should we watch, what Ethereum's doing or Bitcoin Cash or all these other alternative cryptocurrencies? And yeah, I don't know. But Bitcoin still is maintaining its overall dominance pretty well. So I think for the time being, it's pretty similar to the latter half of 2017, where we watched Bitcoin sort of dominate the trend. Obviously is not the most, I don't know, rising star right now. I mean, Bitcoin Cash has literally doubled its value, and Ethereum Classic went crazy. Now,
But
can't,
nobody's knocked the king off the perch, though.
correct. Yeah. So I think for the time being, it's we pay attention to Bitcoin, and once we earn the right to start to really speculate on the alternative currencies, then we'll get to that point. But for right now, I think let's all eyes are on Bitcoin, basically.
Now, if we were to stretch reality here and compare this versus the tech bubble, and I'm not saying that we're going to have to go through 18 years of recovery to get to the tech bubble. In fact, what do we say that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies move 15 times faster? So we could be in and out of this thing in no time at all. So
Mhm.
one of the things that happened back then in the early 2000s and later after that was just this sort of purge where all of the pets.com and all that crap just went away. And what survived was the great business use cases that have changed all of our lives. So, are we in the process of doing that right now?
That was one of the interesting topics that I heard yesterday at Crypto Invest Summit. It's sort of how that we've seen this before. We've seen what happens when you have a technology based industry, and then you interject more technology or more advancements, and the first iterations are always going to be you know rough around the edges, and going to miss the user experience. uh I don't know, but it is look at like Amazon, for example. Its initial business model was selling online books 20 years ago, or books online. But now that makes up what, like 5-10% of what Amazon's store sells. They're a data company. They they completely dominate in terms of their ability to read what people are wanting, and give some sort of solution for that. So I don't know. There's definitely a transition period that's happening right now as we sort of figure out what we're going to be doing with these cryptocurrencies, and moving into successive iterations of the generations of blockchain. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot we have to look forward to, I think.
Yeah, I mean and even the stuff that you're working on right now is just it's changing the scope of the the new world, right? The new economy, the new way to do things, and it's
Mhm.
I I think we're almost seeing a crossover in it. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or whether it's going to happen next year, but at some point we're going to have just this tipping point of the old way of doing things is just going to collapse under its own weight.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think where we're at and what we're doing right now is going to be very impactful, and very part of the overall trend of things. The genie's out of the bottle, if you will. It's there's no going back. People have started to taste and see the benefits of decentralization, and I don't believe we'll have true decentralization anytime soon. But the tenets of decentralization, the tenets of being permissionless, having censorship resistant open ledgers. These are really important things that I think will form the basis of how the internet evolves, how just social interactions regarding monetary you know, environments evolve. There's a lot to consider. Blockchain touches many different aspects of our society in different ways, and just finding ways to build that out right now is I think, we're still in a very much a building phase, an innovation phase, and I think these past 10 years have really set the foundation for that, and now we get to see it kind of come to fruition in a little bit more interesting ways. So yeah, I don't know. I always want to make sure I'm not saying like we're getting ready to get ready, but um, I think we are like on the precipice of some really interesting developments.
Hey, so you got a new class that's out. Why don't you take a couple of minutes and tell folks that not everybody may be aware that you actually do have a new class out that's in the
Yeah,
catalog.
yeah. So decentralized finance is the new class, or DeFi as it's referred to, and it kind of capitalizes on a lot of what we were just talking about, in the sense that you know you've got the legacy financial system over here, and you've got cryptocurrency over here, and there's some common aspects, but really there's a bridge that's lacking in between them. The tenets of the legacy financial system and blockchain, the cryptocurrency space, are very fundamentally different. Very centralized, very decentralized. Very you're centralizing a lot of risk and liability. You're trying to decentralize all of that. So there's some places where they overlap, some places where they are completely, there's no Venn diagram at all. So as we are looking to move into the future, as we're looking to expand the role of cryptocurrency and further its adoption, we need the solutions, the applications, the protocols that sort of build the bridge in between the legacy financial system and the blockchain crypto space. And that's basically what DeFi represents. It represents the opportunity to have these protocols, these permissionless protocols that help people to move and find use cases in cryptocurrency, the blockchain space, kind of coming from the legacy financial system under the same sort of paradigms, and just adding the aspects of decentralization to it. So, for example, you have blockchain bank accounts that give you a 7% APR. You've got blockchain loaning, and I was just talking about Dharma yesterday. How you can borrow Ethereum at 0.1%, and you can lend it out at 2.5%. You could borrow DAI at 3.5% on MakerDAO's CDP portal, or 4% on Dharma, and lend it out at 8% on Dharma. There's definitely some profit potential. There's definitely some potential for those who are savvy to see that this is we're sort of building the framework of these new web-based online protocols, of banking
So you
protocols.
can become your own bank. Is that not true?
Well, yes. I think where we originally saw Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, the core tenet was that you hold your assets, you hold the private key, so you are the bank, and that's all well and good until you start to try to want to exchange assets, do some funky things with them, do derivatives, do options, do ETFs, all these things that you do need some network participation, in the sense that there's if you want to go outside of the Bitcoin blockchain, then you kind of lose that sense of being your own bank. You sort of have to trust a centralized exchange that they won't get hacked, or they won't go down, or something like that. And just it always was always comical to me that we have a decentralized asset and we're trading it on a centralized exchange. Kind of defeats the purpose. So DeFi, decentralized finance, is sort of the ethos of finding these applications, finding these ways to allow you to do things like peer-to-peer lending on a decentralized platform. Um, you know, Really, DeFi is Ethereum's grand use case, if you will, finding ways to programmatically allow people to access the functions of modern financial systems in a permissionless, open source sort of way. So, I always quote the statistic of, you know, the World Bank, 2 billion people don't have access to modern financial systems. They are quote unquote unbanked or underbanked or whatever. So this means that they're being completely left behind, but they still need to manage their money. They still need to send money overseas. They still need to have a bank account so that they can pay people. They've just been left behind by the modern financial system. And so with the advent of the internet, smartphones, online banking, and now the blockchain, we have the ingredients we need to give those people access to all the functions of modern banking right from the palm of their hand, and in a permissionless way that can't say, no, you can't do that. So this is a big convention, big shift in how we think about the role of banks, the role of how people interact with their money, and lots of things. And importantly, for the context of this class, I think there's a lot of potential for us to understand where things are going in that respect. It's very akin to how I talked about security tokens and STOs as being sort of the same paradigm shift, if you will, or it's doing something that just exists outside the realms of what we consider the reality of modern financial services, industry, whatever. This is a very big development, and really the way that cryptocurrency moves towards mainstream adoption. We have to have the bridge between the legacy financial system and crypto in order for that to happen. I was always skeptical of the fact that one day a bunch of people are just going to find Bitcoin and start using it, and then magically we have mainstream adoption. No, that's not going to happen.
You won't get mainstream adoption unless something catastrophic occurs. Mainstream adoption is a step function.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, I think it'll slowly be adopted. It'll slowly be rolled in, much the same way as TCP/IP was rolled in 30 years ago.
Yeah. So I think this kind of capitalizes on sort of this trend that I'm watching, and something that we're trying to pay attention to in a macro sense with Ready Set Crypto is we talk about the three pillars of crypto, STO, and DeFi, because that is to us what represents the new digital economy, the new decentralized economy, if you will.
Hey, you mentioned smartphones a minute ago. What's your take on? So Samsung is now announcing, I forget which model is going to include a wallet in it.
The S10.
The S10.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's already out then.
To my knowledge, yes. I don't know. I think that's good. I think slowly getting cryptocurrency in more people's hands. I talked a little bit about this with the Facebook coin stuff too yesterday. This is definitely all well and good to have more and more people slowly integrate with cryptocurrency, and it's how you talk about people need to hear something 7 times in order to truly get it. Same sort of thing with blockchain and cryptocurrency. They may not understand the central tenets of blockchain and how it works or all that sort of stuff. All people really care about is how does it benefit them, and that's where I look at something like DeFi and say, okay, I can tell you how it benefits you. You look at a checking account here in the States, and you get a 0.01% APR. Your savings account, it's 0.1%. Considering to beat inflation, you have to have returns greater than 3%. I would say that you're basically losing money. ARC. So yeah, that's just one example of we have a better solution that will help you beat inflation, and what's great is you can do it in a decentralized fashion. So there's you're spreading out the risk, and yes, it's going to be kind of awkward, and we sort of lack just the years and decades of financial protections that have been put in place
Yeah.
for the modern, financial user. But I think we have to start somewhere, and what I'm seeing right now is we're making a very good first step, and it's exciting to see where we're going to go. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just looking forward to. I think mobile adoption is going to do the same thing that everything else did with mobile.
Mhm.
Is like, so instead of like walking up to a vendor and saying, "Excuse me, do you have anywhere I could plug my wallet in?" And instead just like throwing up this thing and saying, "Okay, tap here, boom,
Mhm. Yeah.
I just transferred, X number of BTC to you."
Yeah, no, when I was in China last year and watching people use WeChat and Alipay,
Yeah,
watching old grandmas at the farmers market pay for vegetables with their smartphone and QR codes, it was unreal. And yeah, we're
Uh,
like I said, we're on the precipice of something really big.
yeah. It's like when I go to pay for something with my watch, and it's like, wow, how'd you do that? It's like, wow, we are so far behind sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have another add-on class coming up in a couple weeks, don't you?
Yes. So, like I was saying, this is all kind of part of where I think things are going, or what we need to be paying attention to right now, being a part of the crypto space. So, I put out the STO class. I think that was very important, sort of, thing we need to pay attention to in terms of capital formation and how we go about, moving past the ICO and finding a better model, basically. And then now we have working on DeFi and the core tenets of a decentralized financial economy, and how we can find opportunities to get in front of something that is clearly going to be a major thing in the future. And finally, yeah, financial freedom is sort of the last piece of that, I suppose, because it ties in both of those former two categories, and it's something that I get very passionate talking about. Just how people in this day and age need to take advantage, need to pay attention to financial freedom, and how you can entertain retirement early and things like that. Yeah, and under the context of crypto and DeFi and STOs, I think there's a lot we can talk about there, and you know, yeah, not trying to be a financial advisor or anything like that, but I think this stuff is important to talk about in this day and age. So yeah.
Well, we're not being financial advisors, but we're being financial pioneers somewhat.
Yeah,
We're uh,
absolutely.
we're shepherds, if you will.
Mhm.
Just a couple of notes here from the East Coast. Let's see. My next class, I believe, is going to be trading a small account,
Mhm.
and that will be the week of May 6th. So we'll do the traditional kind of like a sort of a public class, and by then I will start rolling open the elements of the class. It'll probably be like a 10 module program. It's not going to be anything massive. It'll be fairly digestible, I'd say, over the course of a weekend. I've taught this class before in terms of trading small accounts. There's a lot of I would say challenges to trading a small account. However, it's the hump that everybody has to get over. And unfortunately, the challenges of trading a small account means that it's that much tougher. So you tend to almost porpoise. You build up some account equity and then you trash it. You build up some account equity and you trash it. And every time you trash it, you learn some new lessons, hopefully. But we don't really have to go through those lessons. We don't have to make those mistakes that we typically make with small accounts. Part of the problem is because you're trading a small account, you have very little, room left to go. You don't have much headroom on the account, so you trade not to lose instead of trading to win, and then that causes its own problems. So there's a lot that I've put into that type of class before. So this will be a lot of fun, and I think it will be helpful for a lot of people. After that, I am going to commit to 3 commas. I've gotten a test account with 3 commas, and it is what I perceive to be dramatically better than anything else that I've experimented with so far. So you and I have gone through a couple of iterations of some vendors, and we're left wanting to some degree.
Hmm.
And I've done so. I've checked some other vendors out, and they look okay, but I just didn't get the results that I wanted to, and it was just kind of left hanging. But three commas appears to be, and through all the comments that I've heard from people in the Discord space in our community, is that they're wild about it and they're getting good success with it. Probably helps that the market has been generally positive. But now is the time to get into this. It was not the time to press the accelerator pedal in 2018 and even the first part of this year. You know, just with the market just like bam, 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 like that. It's just people will quit right before it actually does take off. So I'd say June, July timeframe is when I'm looking at something like that. So there's actually quite a bit of experience in the Discord room with three commas already. So that's a good sign. And so I think that we can put together a collective solution that is tremendous. And still waiting on Digitex. Still waiting on Digitex. I'm hoping that because that Adam hasn't fired any videos off yet, they're waiting for everything to be perfect so that they can then go public. We're already starting to see the price take off again, which is good. It's up to 14 cents versus the US dollar. It has not gone to that same extent versus Bitcoin, of course, because your denominator keeps rising. So it's making it a difficult charge ahead if you're selling into strength or anything like that for Bitcoin or Digitex versus BTC. But it's everything's looking good. But Digitex, I do believe, knows that they can't muck it up this time. I think that they completely screwed up their first quarter launch. You know, like, hey, we're going to do a beta, and then all of a sudden, no, we're not going to do a beta. So that was a good time to buy. But I'm waiting to hear any day now. As soon as I hear from Adam, we will do an AMA here on our public live YouTube channel with Adam Todd, and I will queue up a bunch of questions. So if you want to reach out to me offline and make sure that a question gets into Adam, I will make sure that I do that. Cool. So that's kind of it from this end. Any questions? Anybody got anything out there? Let's see. Hey, Nick. Which version of three commas are you going with? Starter, Advanced, or Pro? Probably whatever one is the highest level is usually what I pick. The starter is good if you're just going to trade. Even the starter pack is surprisingly good. You guys, I mean, by now you've heard me say this a million times, is like rule number one, define your exits before you enter the trade. That's what they force you to do, which is awesome. It's like you can't enter a trade without also specifying your exits, which is like, wow. So this, to some degree, allows me to let people, what I love about this is that you can get started just with that. So before you start firing off bots and destroying your account and doing something you don't know what you're doing, just test it out with a smart trade function. And that alone will provide value just to a manual trade entry, which is phenomenal. And even a trailing stop function too, which is great. So you can ease your way into it, which is why I'm kind of like pumped up about three commas.
Cool. I'm excited to see what we can get out of that.
Yep. So it's like I said, there's some guys that are in our Discord room that are fairly well advanced. So this is going to be a collaborative solution. It's not going to be a doc special. This is going to be all of us kind of pulling together and, working for the betterment of everybody else.
Very cool.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else got any darts to throw or anything else out there? Otherwise, we got work to do. It's newsletter time.
Yeah.
Anything else from your end, Dart? So how's California in a nutshell? Has it been a good move for you?
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely warmer. But no, it's the crypto culture is definitely alive and well here, and it's very cool to see. So I'm very much enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. I'll be doing a trade school on Friday about what topic. I have no clue yet. So if you have any suggestions for trade school, let me know. I'd be happy to accommodate. So everybody, have a great day. Doc and Mav are hitting the road. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and we'll see you soon now. Bye.
See you guys.
There goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight, there goes a sight. Now there goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight from my soul.